Hello, welcome to Learn How to Sew 101. This is our first lesson. I'm Andrea from andreasnotebook.com, and I will be doing weekly sewing lessons here. You can catch them live, and if you'd like to see them later, watch them again, you can go ahead and save this or share it, and you will have access to that to watch over again. So welcome everyone. This is our first Sewing 101 lesson. Say hello if you're here. I am going to share this video with a few people. Hi Emily. Hi Samira. Let me grab my water, hold on. All right. Welcome. Today, let's see, where did I put my, oh, it's behind me. Today we're going to be making a pillowcase, a simple pillowcase. We're going to start with the basics of the sewing machine, how to thread it, how to wind a bobbin, and excuse me, and we're going to work our way up to sewing. So we're doing it all. This is the pillowcase. Back up. Simple pillowcase with a cuff on the end, two different color fabrics, or you can use the same if you want. Give me just a moment to tell some friends about the video. How are you all doing? I do want to say that our friends at fabric.com are sponsoring this video, so thank you very much to them. Here we go. Let me grab the link. And I have been sewing for most of my life. My mom taught me to sew when I was very young, probably 8. I don't know exactly how old I was, but I was pretty young. And I used to sew a lot of doll clothes and little bags and stuff, and then when I had my first daughter 12 years ago, I decided to pick up sewing again. So I read a bunch of books and picked up more proper techniques. Hi Sandra, Nilda, hi. And then I taught myself how to design sewing patterns and started making my own clothes. Then I started selling patterns, and I've done lots of different things in the sewing industry. I co-designed a line of fabric. There we go. With some friends, and I've stopped designing new sewing patterns for the moment, but I still sew and I still have some patterns out there in the world. Let's see about your questions. Tashawn says, what is a good sewing machine to get? I recommend, if you are starting out, this Brother sewing machine. You can get it lots of different places. This is the CS6000i, I believe, and I got this online. You can get it at a few different places. It's a good budget sewing machine, but it is reliable. I have some other budget machines that are less reliable. That one I recommend. My daughter got that about 4 years ago, and it's still going strong. So this machine that I have here is not a starter machine. It's what you upgrade to when you're sure you love sewing. So, all right. This is wonderful. I am glad so many people are coming in. I'm reading comments over here on my computer because they don't all pop up here on the camera. Hi in Minnesota. It must be Nancy. So I have here we go. I have lots of things to discuss with you today. So here we go. Tell me if you're here watching, do you own a sewing machine? What's your sewing level? You might see that brother at Walmart. They don't have the other cheaper brother machines. I bought a brother at Walmart that I definitely do not love and don't recommend. I'm not going to mention that one. But you can, you might be able to find it. Oh, Mexicali and Baja, hi. Where else is everybody from? Okay, here we go. Some people are asking where to watch the show, so I'm responding to them real quick. Anyone else have a sewing machine? Total beginner, you've been sewing for a while, you haven't sewn since you were a kid? Let me know what your comfort level is with sewing. And, all right, where's my video? There we are. Ash says she's wanting to learn how to sew. Her in-laws gave her an old metal Singer, and she says, would you recommend buying a newer one? It depends. Some of the old sewing machines are great and still work great. If you've inherited an old machine, I would take it to a sewing machine place and have them give it a tune-up, and they can let you know what they think of it. But a lot of the older ones still work great. They don't have all the bells and whistles that the new ones have. You don't necessarily need that, and a lot of people prefer the ones that don't have all the plastic parts because they do last a long time anyway. So if you don't have one, I would recommend the brother. If you have something, go ahead and try it out and see what you think. If it works and it runs fine, then stick with it. Steph says she taught herself how to sew. She likes knowing the right way to do things, so she's excited to learn more tips. Geraldine has an old sewing machine as well. And Lisa is a beginner. She has a Singer Prelude machine. And lots of people here. Oh, Luann, you have this? This is a really, really great machine. It's kind of like having the Rolls-Royce sewing machines. Once you start on a beginner machine, and then if you move up to one of the more expensive machines, there's a pretty big difference in the way they sew. But you know, you don't need to have that. It's just, it's nice to have, but it's not a must-have. So lots of people coming. I love it. I love it. All right, so we have people here now. I think it's about time to get started. My video says, oh, Shelby, you have a 1950s Singer Slant-O-Matic. That's fun. Sarah's in Texas. She's been sewing since she was 7. She has her grandmother's metal dinosaur from 1982. 82, is that the dinosaur? And her daughter has the brother from Amazon. She wants to learn more about fashion design. She got a serger for Christmas. Ooh, yeah, sergers are really fun, but my first serger I kept in the box for like a year. So some people have asked about how to use a serger, and I will, after this series, when we kind of learn the basics of the sewing machine, then I can do a series on how to use a serger and how to get that out of the box and get it going. All right, so here's what we're going to do. The first thing I'm going to teach you is about the basic parts of the machine. The things you need to know are how to thread it, how to wind a bobbin. How you put the bobbin in is going to be a little different on every machine. So if you have your owner's manual for your machine, I would highly recommend that you take a peek at it or Google it, because you can find just about any manual online now, which is nice. So I'm going to show you in both of my machines, or in two of my machines. I have more. So hi Karen. Oh, yay, from Spain. Is it Seidel? See, I don't want to butcher your name. I'm sorry if I don't say anyone's name correctly. Annika has a Husqvarna Viking Lily 535. Yeah, I bet that's a really nice one. Sarah has one in the box from Black Friday. Is that your serger or your sewing machine? All right, so in a sewing machine, here, I'll put this one in my lap and we can kind of do both of them. In a sewing machine, you're going to have the thread that goes along the top, and the thread winds down through here. It's going to go down and up, and then it's going to go into the needle. And the bobbin thread goes down here. Some load in the front, some load in the top. This is called top loading. And the bobbin thread works together with the thread in the needle, the top thread. And the needle goes down, it catches the bobbin thread, comes back up, and it makes a secure stitch all the way along. So really, to get started, all you need to know is how to put your bobbin thread in, how to get this thread going. So you will have to wind your bobbin thread. In order to do that, this machine has directions right on it, which is really handy. But it's about the same for every machine. You're going to have the thread on the spool over here. Put that out of the way. And it goes back through here, depending on the machine. It'll go around or through this little device here. And then you're going to have a bobbin. You will start the thread on the bobbin. There's a little, most of the bobbins will have a little tiny hole. So we're going to go through the hole, and I pull it out quite a bit, and then you'll put it on the bobbin winder. Now this bobbin is actually for my other machine, so it's not going to snap all the way down. It's a special bobbin, but you'll put it on here, and once it's on, you snap the bobbin over to the side, and then you'll hit the foot pedal. Some machines might require you to do one more step, but most of them won't. You'll snap it over, you'll hit the foot pedal, and then it'll start winding. So let me show you on my other machine, since this bobbin goes to that machine. All right, my thread is up here, and I do the same thing. I wind it through here, put it in the bobbin. You should use a polyester thread. I recommend Gutermann. Coats & Clark is also a brand that you can find in most stores. So I keep some of the thread out while I start the winding. Oh, hello, I didn't push it over. There we go. All right, so I push it over, and then after it winds up quite a bit, then I cut off, and you just keep your foot on, and it'll wind up, and the machine will stop when it's done winding. If you have an old machine, it might not stop. You'll probably have to watch it, but anything newer will automatically stop. All right. I'm going to stop it. And most machines will have a thread cutter up here. I know my, well, I guess the brother doesn't. So some do. You can cut it with thread if you want. And then we're going to put it in, you put it in the bobbin housing in here. Some machines you put it in the front, some you put it in the top. I think a lot of the new ones are all top loading. So follow your instructions on that. You put it in and wind it like your instructions say, and I'm not getting it in the right spot. I'm not sure why. Well, I've worn this one a million times. What am I doing wrong? Oh, there we go. All right. So you'll put the bobbin in. Again, check your manual. It's really easy. Almost every machine makes it pretty simple anymore. The older machines will be more difficult, but you can all do it. So once you have the bobbin thread in, then you're going to need to rethread your machine. It's going to go around a little bobble on the top. Again, your machine should have instructions. You go down through here, back up, and then there's a little lever on the top. You catch it on, and you're going to go back down. Hold on a second. It lines it up. Why am I not catching? All right, this is what happens when you do things live. And a lot of new machines have a little automatic threader, so it'll go through. And I didn't thread mine, but that's okay. Because first we're going to cut the fabric, get the fabric ready before I start sewing. Hi, Amy. Hi, Tina. Jennifer. Awesome. And Pravina said your mom always freehand cut. You know, everybody used to, and I don't know, I love not having to do that. All right, so I'm going to back the camera up and we're going to talk about fabric, how to find, all right, let's see here, nice and close up personal shot. Here we go. So fabric.com sent me fabric to use for this, which is great. I did a video, made pillows, zipper pillows with these last year. And they're sponsoring this video, of course, so make sure you take a minute to look at all the links and browse through their awesome selection of fabric. This is Cotton and Steel, which is the brand. It's a division of RGR Fabrics, and I love all the Cotton and Steel designs. This one is just black and white. If you're going to square up your fabric to cut it, you need to figure out, first you line up the ends on both sides, and it might not hang right. I'm going to have it hang wrong so that you can see exaggerated what is right and wrong. When you bring home your fabric or you order your fabric online, it isn't going to be cut exactly square on the grain line. It's almost impossible for them to do that just because of the way fabric is rolled. So you're going to want to line up, and then you line up the edges and you see this isn't hanging right. This is my mom's like quick method for, I'm sure it's lots of people's mom's quick method for squaring up your fabric. So you're going to readjust the top until your fabric is hanging right and not all bunched up. So I keep going until it's not bunched up, because what you want is the grain line on your fabric. The threads are running through, all the way through this fabric, both directions. So you want the one thread that's going through here to be lined up on both sides when you fold it. That way when you cut it, you are cutting a straight line instead of a line that goes like this and then back up or whatever, because it's folded and it's not on the grain. So, someone did mention pre-washing, and most people recommend pre-washing your fabric before you sew on it for anything. Some quilters don't, because they like the way that fabric then shrinks when you wash it afterwards, and it gives it more of a crinkle look. But almost everybody would recommend that you pre-wash any fabrics. It also gets some of the chemicals and the sizing off of the fabric before you use it. So the grain line, I'm going to take a snip of this and show you the grain line. Alright, so if you take a snip of your fabric and you rip it, you can see, oh, see how I didn't get very far before ripping it? That's because my fabric is cut pretty crooked. So I'm going to rip it down a little lower so we can show you. Alright, this is going to get the grain line going all the way across. So we can see that's one line going across. That is one way you can find the grain line, is just by ripping it. Most people don't like to rip their fabric. They prefer to line it up and find the square and then cut it. But some people prefer the ripping method. Fiji, hi Fee, hi everybody. Welcome. Come on in, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to try to answer as many as I can catch. And we're going through lots of basics right now, so just bear with me. You'll be able to, if you save this video, you'll be able to rewatch it, fast forward, rewind, everything. But I'll try to repeat myself for people who are just coming on as well. So, alright. So our larger piece of fabric for our pillowcase is actually going to be 27 inches long. And I said to have a one full yard, which is 36 inches, because we are starting, and that extra piece we're going to use for testing on your machine. It's actually a good idea, even if you use your machine all the time and you know how to sew, to always test out your fabric, your particular fabric on your machine before you sew with a test piece, just so you can test your needle in it to make sure it works right, so you can make sure that the tension is set correctly. And if your tension isn't correct, then you'll be able to fix it before you get to your project, and you won't make any mistakes in tension or an old needle that's poking big holes in your fabric. So, so we are going to be cutting 27 inches of our fabric, and then this is 12 inches. Fold it over, and you are going to make the inside look like that. What it is top stitched on the outside. It's really easy to make this seam. We're doing the burrito method of making a pillowcase. And the inside seam along the edges, there are multiple ways of finishing the raw edge of fabric. A lot of people, when they make pillowcases, prefer to do what's called a French seam, or what we call a French seam. And that totally encases the raw edges so that you don't have any fraying when you wash it, and it's a really clean, nice way to do it. Since this is our first project, I decided not to do that method. We are just going to finish. You can finish with pinking shears, which are like those zigzag shears, which would probably be my preferred method for doing this. It gives it a nice vintagey feel. But I did this in a zigzag stitch along the edge to finish the seam, so I'll show you how to do that. There are other methods for finishing seams, and we will learn new methods in different lessons going forward. So what we need to do is cut 27 inches. We have our cotton and steel fabric. We're going to line it up, and then I'm going to press the folded edge just so it lays really flat. We're going to cut 27 inches off of this, and then we're going to get a coordinating piece for the cuff, and I have to decide, what do you guys think, the pink or the yellow? It's going to be the cuff with the black. We'll cut 12 inches off of this, and I know that these fabrics should be the exact same width. Some quilting cottons are like 44 inches, some are 42 inches, so that yours might be a little bit different. So I will show you how to cut them just to make sure the edges are perfect. Let's see. Hi, Judy. Oh, my bobbin's fine now. It's the, once we turn this machine back on, we'll get going. Kathy says she's been sewing on and off for 40 years, recently got a brother, SQ9185, and she can't even sew more than 2 seams without the thread breaking. She's frustrated. Ideas, please. That sounds like it's not threading correctly, and it's not winding right. So somewhere it's catching. What I would do in that situation, I had a machine, an old machine, that wasn't doing great. So I just took it to my local dealer, and I asked them to help me, and they helped me. So I think it's a really easy way to do it. Most of the time, the people that work there are really friendly, or they might charge you, but yay, hi Ashley. Ashley's from fabric.com. She just put a link to fabric.com here. Definitely check it out. So let's get started on oh, Judy's saying might be a bobbin thread. Yeah, it's hard to say. There could be a lot of different things. So if you are trying to sew and something's not working right, I start over. So I take the thread off and I take the bobbin out and just put it back on again. Sometimes you skipped a step or you've threaded it wrong somewhere. Just start over, and 90 times out of 100 it fixes the problem. If the problem is still there, then it might be a machine issue. So you might need to take it in. All right. Yes, Gilda, this video will remain up. The best way for you to be able to watch it again will be to save it or to share it to your wall, and then you will have access to that, and you can fast forward and rewind when we're at the end. So that makes it easy for you. Real quick before I get going, I'm going to share this video with some friends again. And all right. Okay. Hi, Wendy in South Wales. Okay, so which color did we decide we wanted to do the cuff, yellow or pink? These are both also cotton and steel from fabric.com. This is the spring 2014 line, and I'm pretty sure that they still have it there because it's really popular. So Tashawn says pink. Hi, Connie. So yellow or pink? What do you think? Yellow or pink? What do you think? All right. Oh, yellow, pink, pink, yellow, pink. It's going to be a tie, isn't it? Hi, Nina. Judy, thank you for all the great advice. I really appreciate that. If someone asks a question in here, I might miss it. Questions go kind of fast sometimes, or I might be in the middle of something. So if you guys have an answer for them, go ahead and answer them. I love that. That is awesome. Yellow, pink. Okay, I'm just going to have to decide. You guys can't decide either. We're going to go pink. All right, so I'm going to do pink first. So here we go. Let me make sure my iron's heated back up again. All right, this fabric is pretty much squared up. So do you guys ever hear the word the bias? The bias when it comes to fabric. All right, you see I'm trying to get this to lay flat. So the bias when it comes to fabric is basically the diagonal. So we've got the vertical and the horizontal grain, and then the bias is the diagonal. So if you cut fabric on the bias, it becomes stretchier, which some patterns and projects will want you to cut things on the bias. Most do not. So make sure you pay attention to that, and you always square up your fabric first. All right, yay, pink, yeah, pink one. All right, let me pull my water and iron over here real quick. And I'm just going to iron the crease real quick to make sure that this stays in place while I'm cutting. And also, you guys, this is a pillowcase. If it's not perfect, that's probably a good thing. Because it's just a pillowcase and you're going to sleep on it. Or you're going to give it as a gift or something, and someone else is going to sleep on it because it's just a pillowcase. So if this is your first, second, third, fifth, 20th sewing project and you mess up something, I wouldn't worry about it. If your fabric didn't get squared up exactly perfectly, it's not going to matter that much because these are large pieces of fabric and a pillowcase is forgiving. If you are making a quilt with small pieces, it's, earthquake there. It's more important to make sure that you get your fabric squared up, or any quilt really, because you're going to be sewing all those little pieces together and you need everything to be really accurate. But for this project, it's not going to matter so much. So, all right, good. I am going to move you back and adjust the camera so that you can see my cutting table. All right. There we go. All right. We are going to cut the black fabric first, and I pressed it on the edge so I know that the fabric's staying where it should be. I have a cutting mat, which I highly recommend. You can use a rotary cutter or scissors on a cutting mat, but first you need to line up your folded edge along one of the long lines here, and then I'm going to trim my edge here. You can do this by taking your scissors, and cutting along the line. That's perfectly acceptable. What I am going to show you is how to use the rotary cutter. So this is a rotary cutter. It has a sharp blade here, and then this black part is a guard. So when I press it, the blade comes out. So you have to press it in order for it to cut. These come off easily, and you can change them because they get dull and they don't cut fabric as well. This is an acrylic ruler for fabric cutting, and all you have to do is line your ruler up along one of the lines and then hold the ruler still, which is a really important part. Then right along the edge of the ruler, your rotary cutter cuts, and you can cut off your frayed edges, and then you've got a straight line. It's square because you've got your folded edge along one of the lines here, and you just cut along the line here. So now I'm going to count 27 inches. The cutting mats have numbers, so you can do your math or you can count them out to make sure you're right. Either way, whatever is easier for you. I usually do the math and then I count it out because I don't want to cut something like an inch short on accident. So because when I get going fast, sometimes my math fails me. All right, we have this extra. We're gonna save that for testing our needle. All right, so here's our main fabric. Now we're gonna cut 9 inches off of the pink fabric. We're gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna line it up on the cutting mat. First I line up the folded edge along one of the lines. I never line it up all along the very bottom, just because I like to be able to see the bottom edge. It helps me guide my ruler. All right, so I'm going to hold this here and get this lined up correctly. And all I want is 12 inches. First I'm going to cut off the edge though, so that it's straight. Easy, quick. And then 12 inches. And you can play it fast and loose. If you have 11 inches of a fabric, then that's fine. No big deal. Again, it's a pillowcase. All right. So now we have the main body and the trim. And I'm going to stack these up and trim off the excess here so that they're the same. Let me line that up. I'm lining the folded edges up. And then I'm going to cut off the selvage. The selvage is the part that has the writing on it. All right, you guys, I'm going to fold the black one in half just to make it easier. A lot of people like to save the selvage. It's fun. It has the designer on it and what the name of the fabric is, when it's, where it's made, and when it's made. All right. I'm going to trim off the selvage at the same time for both of these. Easy peasy. So I like rotary cutters. All right, they're the same. Now let's bring the camera carefully back to the sewing machine. And hello. Adjust you so you can see me for a second. All right, so I'm sure there's questions. Hi, Anne. And Josette, Isabel. Oh, I love it. Everyone's from all over the world. I am doing the burrito roll. We're going to do the burrito roll pillowcase, which is really easy, simple for beginning. So this will be super fun. One thing I forgot to mention yesterday in my little preview is that you should have pins when you are sewing to pin your fabrics together so they don't slide. When people have been sewing for a while, they tend to get lazier and stop using pins, which I didn't use pins when I was sewing this one earlier. But I'm going to teach you how to use pins because you should definitely use pins. So we will do that. Awesome. Hi, Amanda. Bella. Kathy, oh good. Wonderful crew here. Okay, so now we are going to start sewing. And I should have kept now that I'm thinking about it, I should have kept the camera on the cutting table because it's easier for me to show you what I'm going to be doing next. So actually what we're going to do real quick is we're going to, before we even pin anything together, we are going to take our fabric that we just cut off and don't need, and all right, what is going on here? I might have to switch to my other machine. I do not know why she's behaving this way. Yeah, it's not catching. When it goes up, it's supposed to catch. So, all right, we're gonna switch to the, oh, hey, there, it finally caught it. I was gonna switch to the brother, which, for time's sake, but it caught it. All right, we're gonna thread the needle, and my eyes are bad, so I always use the auto threader here. And we are going to test out the needle and the tension and everything on our fabric. By hand, because that's what happens when you are sewing live. Alright. My eyes didn't fail me. Now, if you are sewing on most sewing machines, you are going to need to pull the bobbin thread up. The bobbin thread is down below, so use the hand crank. You go down and back up, and then you'll be able to pull the thread, and the bobbin thread is right there. You'll be able to pull it out. This machine does it on its own, so it's I don't have to do that. There's the bobbin thread. So I can start this machine without pulling the bobbin thread out. But you'll want to make sure you just go put the needle down, keep going forward and back up, and that grabs the bobbin thread, and then you can get sewing. So that's what you want to do. Now I just want you to take your scrap and play around. So you're going to sew some straight lines, you're going to stop, you're going to pull the fabric out, cut it, you're going to start again, you're going to see how it's working, especially if you've never used your machine or it's an old machine that hasn't been used in a while. Just play around with your fabric a little bit. My machine, when I put my foot on the pedal, it automatically goes down. But most machines will have a lever back here or a button to put the foot down. You need to sew with the foot down every time. If the foot's not down, your thread will not be catching correctly, and your stitches will be awful. So just go forward a little bit. There's a reverse button. Most machines have a reverse button. Some will have a lever. Old machines, you might have to do it manually with the hand thing. You go in reverse to basically secure a stitch. So when you start, you want to go forward, backward, forward, so it catches it so that your stitch doesn't pull out easily. So just go slow, yeah. And this guy's acting up. Just go slow, check it out. If something's not right, put your bobbin back in again, or you can re-thread it, or you can check your needle. This is why we start on a scrap. So you'll put the foot down and you'll sew. All right, my machine didn't like that. So, okay, so the next thing we're going to do, the next thing we're going to do is to line up our fabric in the burrito roll, and we will pin it, and then we'll get ready to sew it. So when you are done playing around with your machine, making sure your stitches work and that it's threaded correctly, then you can put your fabric together. Here we'll work on our burrito roll. We're going to lay the cuff fabric down first, right side up. When it comes to fabric, we call the outside, the pretty side, the right side. So you're going to lay that right side up. I'm going to lay it out flat here. And then we're going to put the main body fabric right side up on top of it. So this is a little bit counterintuitive because most time when you sew you want things right side together. But this is a really easy way to make the seam on the cuff so that it's perfectly finished and you don't need to finish the cuff seam at all, and it looks really nice. All right, let me see. Any questions going on here? Yeah. Well, you know, anytime you're going to do a live video, anything that could go wrong will go wrong, which is pretty much what I've discovered in the past year with live videos. You know, if you're cooking, things like don't rise like they're supposed to, or, you know, you got flustered or you skip a step just because you're being recorded. That's just, I don't know how it works for me. Okay. So I have this edge lined up nicely, and then I'm going to take this side and roll it. This is why it's called a burrito. We roll this up, and I'm going to roll it like this. We don't want to cover all the way up to the edge because we are going to take this one and make basically like a sandwich. And then I'm going to pin all the way along the edge here. So I will hold up the pins when I'm done and show you a little bit closer how it looks. I put the pins in, a lot of people put them in at like perpendicular to the edge of the fabric. I put them in at a little bit of an angle. I think it prevents the fabric from slipping a little bit more than straight in. Want to make sure that it's catching all three layers the same and the edges continue to line up. Most people will tell you to put pins in every 2 to 3 inches when you're sewing things that are likely to slip. You know, more often if it's especially slippery fabric. If you are working with silky fabrics or like a minky fabric, those super soft fabrics, then you would probably want to put pins in more frequently. And when you're sewing with pins, you just sew slowly and pull them out as you go and put them back in your pin cushion, because you don't want to be just setting them on the table, which is easier sometimes, but you're more likely to have one roll off and then you'll step on it or whatnot. So just take the time to put it back in your pin cushion. And also, don't put them in your mouth. I know that that is kind of something that, I don't know, a lot of people who sew do or have done in the past. And I've just read a few too many stories of women who put pins in their mouth while they're pinning things and then accidentally inhale them, which is not what you want in your lungs, ladies. So let's not do that. I laugh, but that's just because I know that I've put them in my mouth many times, and I'm probably lucky that I haven't impaled myself with a pin. This part is why a lot of people skip it, because it takes extra time, but especially when you're first starting out, don't skip the pinning. You'll be more likely to have a project that works out well if you pin. You'll be less frustrated in the end. Things will line up better. The edges will be better. Okay. So I put the pins in at an angle like that. Some people put them in perpendicular. You can do it either way. So this is our burrito roll. We are going to sew from this end all the way down to this end, and then we will flip it inside out, and and I will show you what it looks like then. All right, guys, I'm going to take 1 second to figure out why my machine is angry at me. Your machines will likely get angry at you at some point as well. I'm going to change my needle. I needed a new needle anyway. With quilting fabric, grab my tomato. All right, with quilting fabric, I use a 90/14 needle. These are Schmetz. You can get them on fabric.com. It's kind of a universal size. You can get a pack of needles that has different sizes. So if you're going to try out different fabrics, you'll want to try out different things. All right. So your machine's having trouble. Turn it off. Don't kick it. You might want to, but go ahead, turn it off. Yeah, there. It was, something's not right there. Hopefully it figured itself out. Now I'm going to rethread it. And it's not catching. So I am going to set her aside, and we are going to use the brother. And for the sake of sanity, it's nice to have two machines, for me anyway. All right, so this is the brother machine I was talking about. You can find it online, you can find it in stores. It's a CS6000i. This one has a little diagram. Show me how to thread it. All right, I'm going to turn it on. Okay. This is not the one I use most of the time. It is my daughter's machine. I took it off of her desk. There, has the little automatic threader, or the little needle threader. I don't know, it's like a helper or whatever it is. And then the bobbin is in here in the housing, and it's already set up. It's a light blue, but that's okay. I'm going to keep that in there. Sometimes having a colored thread in the bottom helps when you're teaching, because you can see the thread a little bit better. Here we go. Oh, okay. Anne says schools, and Rosemary says schools should teach sewing. I think a lot of schools have a class in sewing, but it's not mandatory or anything. So, all right. Now, this is a new machine, so I'm going to grab a scrap of my fabric to sew on it, just to make sure that everything is Good. Now this one I have to put the foot down with the little lever. And let me move my foot pedal over here. All right. So, oh, there we have the bobbin winder on. There we go. And I'm sewing. I go slowly just to make sure it feels like it's going well. Yay for that. And then I hand wind it to pull the needle up. I lift up the foot, pull the fabric out. This one has a little neat thread cutter over here, like the other one I have. Check to make sure that it is working right. It looks to be working correctly, so we're gonna get going. All right, can you guys see at this angle? Do I need to put it down a little bit more? I don't know. That should be fine, right? Maybe I'll move it this way a little bit. Okay. So, hi Diane, you, welcome. And you'll be able to at the end go back and rewatch anything you missed, but you haven't missed too much. I am demonstrating what to do when your machine doesn't want to work right. And because I'm on a live video, what I did was pull out a different machine. So what we're gonna do, guys, this is your first stitch on your fabric. We're gonna stitch all the way along here and choose a width of seam that, you know, you can choose a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, whatever you are comfortable with, as long as you stay with the same width on this one. Your machine will probably have little lines here, which are guides. So up close would be better. I can try to get it up a little bit closer. I just have to put the, okay, hold on, bear with me. I just have to have room for my body as well. I'm gonna lower this camera down. All right, bear with me, guys. I don't have my camera crew here. All right. There. Okay. I think that's as good as we're gonna get for now, and still be able to see what's going on. Diane says she hopes that we review what to do with tension issues, and that's a good idea. I should mess up the tension on one of my machines intentionally one of these times. My FAF doesn't get tension issues, so we'll do the brother. It doesn't get tension issues too often, but the other day when I was making sure that this was working correctly, it was having some and I had to fix them, so we can do that. I do have a serger, Alice. I have a serger and I have a cover lock machine, so we can definitely move on. Let's get these basics down for some people. The light is really blowing out here. It's just the sewing machine light. Don't know why it looks so bright on the camera, but we've got the foot down, and I have lined up my fabric with the little guide I've chosen over here. So we're ready to go. I'm gonna go forward a couple steps and then go back and then forward again. And so that it is secured on the edge. Sorry guys, I'm sharing this video with some friends to make sure that people who wanted to see it are seeing it. There we go. All right, so here we go. We're ready to do a straight stitch forward. I'm gonna go slow now. There we go, back stitch. Again, I'm not used to this one. So this one just has an automatic, I'll show you that again. I just push the button and it automatically does a back stitch, which is kind of neat. So if you're looking at this sewing machine, that one will just do it for you, which is nice. Now, I recommend going very slow when you first start out. It seems a little boring, but your stitches will be so much straighter. Some sewing machines don't go slow very well, and those are a little bit harder when you are beginning, but trust me, it's worth it to try to figure out a good slow pace for yourself. And I stop and pull the pins out as I go. So I keep my hand, you can't see, I have one hand here to steady the fabric, and then I keep one here. Don't want to get it too close because those needles will go all the way through your finger. But I keep it here to keep the fabric in the right place and to keep it steady. Pull out my pins. And you hear how quiet this machine is? This machine is pretty quiet too. That's another reason I like it. You guys, if your stitch is not going that straight, don't stress out about it. It is not the end of the world in this project if your stitch is not very straight. This is one of the better projects to have a slightly wavy seam on, because the whole seam is going to be encased in our little burrito here. Also, it's a pillowcase, so it's not that big of a deal. Just pull out your pins carefully as you go. Another thing that's nice about having my hands here feeling this fabric is I can feel the other fabric that we rolled up inside here. If it starts to drift and head over here towards where my seam is, I can stop and I could kind of push it back if I wanted to. So my fingers were feeling here to make sure that I'm not going to go over the seam. Now my burrito stops about over here, so I'm okay, but it's good to feel what's going on with your fabric as you go as well. That's useful in all sorts of sewing projects, actually, especially if you're sewing garments, because you'll have all sorts of tricky seams where you don't want to catch the parts of the garment in the seam. And if I happen to accidentally get some in here, we can use the seam ripper and rip it out. I will show you how to use a seam ripper also. There are a couple different methods. Well, there's a few different methods. People are pretty particular about what they see as the right and the wrong method, and I will show you two methods, both, and then I will show you one that I don't recommend that I know a lot of people do use also. So. That I actually every now and then, I should say that I don't recommend it most of the time. Every now and then it does come in handy. All right, my seam's almost done here. I'm gonna go to the edge, and then I'm pushing my little back stitch button, and it does it for me. Then I lift up my needle with my hand crank over on the side, and I lift up the foot. I'm going to pull it out. This machine has the thread cutter right here, but you can use scissors if it doesn't. And I have my burrito. There you can see my stitch. I have light blue on the bobbin thread, white on the top, and that's it. So let me back you up here. Yes, it's the CS 6000i, and I can write that in the comments here real quick. I actually have a blog post about it. Let me find that real quick. All right. I'm sure it'll come up. Okay, so what we want to do is turn this right side out. So you see we've got the fabric inside, the burrito part that we rolled up, and it'll pull right out unless I sewed it together, which since it's live I would probably do. All right, here's the link to the blog post that I wrote about this particular machine. I'm dropping that link in there. You can check that out later. All right, so this will be the inside of your pillowcase, and as you can see, your seam is totally encased. So this part on the edge is not going to have any raw edges hanging out. Isn't that nice? So easy, right? All you did was one stitch, but you encased the trim of your pillowcase. And all we have to do now is what we'll do is we'll press this seam flat, and you always want to use the iron. Makes everything nicer. So yeah, you know what, guys, we're going to do a whole series, sewing series, and each project will introduce a different lesson or thing that you need to know. So next week we're going to talk about sewing curves, because we don't need curves this week. We'll talk about different stitches at another point, and so I'm going to kind of introduce things gradually and in the form of actual sewing projects to learn those things, so it makes it hands-on. So what we're going to do is we're going to press. We're going to use the iron. I'm going to make sure my iron is heating up here. And I'm going to press this, and what you can do, and what I did on this one, and what I would recommend, is to stitch right along the edge there. It's called a top stitch, and we'll do that. You don't have to do that, it's optional. I'm going to do that today, but if you don't do that, it's not going to make or break your project. It'll be just fine as long as you press well. Diane's making a case to hold 4 to 5 pillows. I've seen those on Pinterest. Those are pretty neat. Like, it's like a case, and then you can, it's like a big pillowcase, and you put pillow in it, and then it lays out like kind of like a nap mat, I guess. All right, let's see if I'm just gonna press this edge real quick, and then we'll top stitch, and pull this over here. Hey, I should just have this iron right here so I never have to stand up. How handy. All right, so I'm just gonna press this real quick so that the seams lay flat. It gives it a nice crisp look for your pillowcase. There, easy. Now, top stitching is when you sew on the top. So you want to take the right side of your fabric, and you're going to sew all along. I have the seam is encased in here. I'm going to sew all along, probably about 1/4 inch, all the way along here. That will hold the seam down so that when you wash it, it won't ravel up, and everything after you wash it, it'll still lay flat, and it also gives it kind of a nice look. Like I said, though, you don't have to do that. You can skip that step, but I am going to do it because I think top stitching always makes projects look a little bit more professional and nicer, and this is an easy thing to do. However, you have to keep a pretty straight stitch when you top stitch, so go slow, and you'll use your guides here when I'm top stitching. Some machines will have like a 1/4 inch foot, which has like the actual guide for 1/4 inch, which is really nice. And I don't have one on this machine, I don't think. Well, yeah, she might have one, but I'm not going to switch it right now. But I just use the edge of the foot a lot of times and as my guide when I'm doing a narrow stitch. So let me check some questions here. Hi, Joe. Joe says she loves sewing, and she's 77. Awesome. Thank you for joining us. This pillowcase will fit a regular standard size pillow. The black fabric is 27 inches long, and then this was 12 inches. so it's about 11, probably about 5 inches once it's done. So it'll fit a standard pillowcase, standard pillow. This is the completed one. It's the same size. This one's cute. This is Michael Miller fabric. Oh, I've got it upside down. I'll show you this side. Isn't that cute? Yeah. Joe says she's a fabric hoarder. I am too. I had to, this door behind me is a walk-in closet. You guys, it was packed full of fabric, and I had to move some out of there to store other things. And so I have a lot in my basement now because I couldn't get rid of it. So, hi Megan. Yeah, you guys, if you can't watch live, no big deal. Just go ahead and save this or share it to your wall and you can watch it later. So, I'm trying to catch as many questions as I can as I go. But if anyone here wants to help me answer questions, that would be awesome. Okay, so top stitching. Does anyone have questions about top stitching? Yes. Funny thing about, say, when you write it in French, I was in Paris as a college student studying, well, we were on a break from studying abroad, and we were in Paris and we couldn't figure out where the Eiffel Tower was because we were looking for Eiffel Tower instead of the, is it Tour d'Eiffel? And because we were young and stupid. So anyway, that brings back memories when you write it in French. Hi Laura. Yeah, we're going to be here every week, so I'm going to have a project every week that's adding on to something you're learning. So this week we're doing a straight stitch, and next week we'll work on doing a curved stitch, and each week we'll do a project that adds a new skill. So if you have ideas for projects, go ahead. I don't have the curriculum set in stone at this point. Fabric.com is sponsoring this video, so thank you to Fabric.com. The fabric is from them. You guys can order fabric online. I know a lot of people live in places where you can't get access to nice fabrics, so online is a really good way to get your fabric. All right, here we're gonna get in close again and watch the stitch. I'm moving it down. Let's see. All right, can you guys see? Now I do have the light blue thread in the bobbin, which will be just fine because it will be on the underside of my pillowcase. So no big deal. All right. All right. So I'm going to line this up, and you know what? I'm actually going to use the edge of this sewing foot. I'm going to lift you up so you can see it a little better. Sorry, that light makes it so blown out. The edge, no, you can't see it. At least I can't see it in the video. Too much light from this little bulb. But anyway, I'm going to use the edge of the foot as my guide. And the seam where the pink and black meet, I'm going to make it line up with the edge of the foot the whole way. That's my trick for making a straight top stitch. So I'm going to put the foot down on the edge, line it up, and I'm going to go forward a stitch. Now I'm going to push the back stitch, and this one does it all by itself. Yay. All right, now I'm going to go. The slower you go, the straighter your stitch will be. This is a top stitch, so it matters a little bit more than the stitch we just did. But again, it's a pillowcase, so be kind to yourself. It's not perfect. I'm using a hand on each side to keep this steady. I gently pull it to keep the seam flat. That helps me make straight lines. And again, isn't this sewing machine quiet? I forgot how quiet this machine is.
Where's the stool? Oh, where is it upstairs?
By the clothing racks.
By the clothing.
All right, I'm gonna go a little faster. We'll see if I regret it. Also, this fabric is showing you that sometimes printed fabrics aren't printed along the grain line. So like this has lines of squares, but when we cut it on the grain line, the lines look a little wavy, which is kind of the danger of printed fabrics with lines on them, but no big deal to me. All right, we are nearly to the end. All right, I'm going to push the back stitch button. It does that on its own. Then I'm going to lift the needle up with the hand crank, lift up the foot, cut the thread, and there we have our top stitch. And on the back side, there's the under stitch, and we are ready to head over to the cutting table, and I'll show you what to do next. Let me look at the questions. All right, hi everybody. There's so many new people coming on. It's great. So now we are going to utilize our knowledge about right sides and wrong sides. So the wrong side is the underside. The right side is basically the outside of the fabric that you want. We are going to put the right sides together. There are many ways to finish this. If you are an experienced seamstress, I'd recommend a French seam, or whatever you call it. I know some people in different countries call it different things. We call it a French seam here. We are going to do a simple seam and finish the edge with either pinking shears or a zigzag stitch. So now I have this, it's like an inside out pillowcase. We are going to pin along two edges. We're going to start pinning. The first place I am going to pin is right where these two pink and black edges meet, seams meet. I'm going to pin right here first because I want that to match up perfectly. So this is the first place I'm going to pin. The second place I want to match up perfectly is the ends. So I'm going to pin these to match up perfectly so that when I'm sewing, one doesn't slip further than the other. And then I'm going to pin occasionally all over everywhere. I'm going to pin this corner next, and then I will go back and put pins in everywhere else. I just want to make sure that the places that are the most important to me are done correctly, and then I will pin everywhere else. Does that make sense? Because otherwise you can get pinning and one side can stretch a little bit more than the other side and it'll be off at the end, and then you have to take your pins out and start over anyway. So might as well put your pins in the most important places first and then fill in with pins the rest of the way. I am not putting my pins quite as close together here as I did in our first stitch, because there's just 2 layers of fabric here, They are laying in a position that they want to stay together. So we've got a few pins, but we're ready to go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start sewing on this edge because I want this one to be perfect. So we're going to start on this edge. We're going to sew all the way along the edge. We are going to get to this corner. We're going to stop the machine, pick up the foot with the needle still down in it, and then we're going to rotate the fabric around. You will see that when we get there. All right. I see lots of comments I'm missing. Yes, I'm going to do a new lesson every week. Let me flip it for a second so you can see me. Hello. I'm going to do a new lesson every week, and it will be adding on our skills. So this week we're just working on the straight line, putting two pieces of fabric together and sewing. And then next week we'll work on a new skill and we'll build on it, and they'll always be project-based, so you can come away with something that you finished and at the same time you learned something new. So next week we'll figure out how to sew curved lines, which is a little more difficult. But hi Tasha. Yes, so thank you for answering questions, you guys. Thank you, Karen and Joe. Karen says you really need patience to sew, and that's her problem. You do, but lots of people who aren't patient sew, so it's okay. Nancy says that she bought a brother, and her mom says, so you finally got a brother, because she's got 4 sisters. That's funny. All right, let me move you here. You can see my background mess there. All right, again, we're starting on this edge. We're going to put the fabric in. I'm going to do about a 1/2 inch seam. I'm going to, once my needle's in and my foot is down, then you can take your pin out. Let me grab my tomato, because again, put your pins right back in your pin cushion so that they're not floating around, or else you will step on one. Joe, 4 p.m. Eastern time, so like New York time zone, just like today. Also, there's a link in the description of the video to my Facebook group. I'm going to put another, if you are watching this and on the original live video, you will see my link that I'm about to write in here. This is my Facebook group, and if you join that, then I can answer more questions later, and you will get more notifications of new videos, so go ahead and do that. And then also, if you guys want to save this video or share it, then you can go back and watch it later. Speaking of sharing, I am going to share this video real quick. Okay. There we are. What did we miss? Nelda, I didn't post the measurements. I will do that afterwards. The measurements are 27 inches long for the main fabric, and then the width of the fabric, and then 12 inches for the trim. And at the end of the video, I will put the measurements in the description of this video. All right, so I'm going to backstitch here, and again, this machine does this nice backstitch on its own, yay. And I'm doing a bit of a bigger seam allowance just for the video. It shows a little better. I'm going to go slow again. Coming up to my pin, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to take out this pin so I don't sew over it. If you sew over it, there's a chance that your machine needle might break. So be careful of that. This machine, you can see every time I finish and take my foot off, the needle goes back down into the fabric, which is a really nice feature for a sewing machine. It has the needle down, auto needle down. And I'm holding the fabric with my right hand down here to keep it steady and in place. And I use my left hand to guide it. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me. Okay, when you get to the corner, you want, if your machine doesn't automatically put the needle down, then go ahead and use the hand crank and put the needle down. And then I lift the foot up so that the fabric can turn. And then I'm going to turn the fabric 90 degrees and then put the foot back down. This will give you a perfect corner, and it won't be all wiggly or anything. It won't be curvy. It's a perfect square corner. And then we'll keep going. Nearly complete, and then we'll finish the edges. When you wash fabric, and you can see it starts to fray just from cutting it, it can become quite a mess if you don't finish your edges. It's not as pretty and it catches on itself. So what we want to do is finish the edges. And I was looking for my pinking shears right before this because I think using pinking shears is the most fun way to finish the edge of a pillowcase, the seam of a pillowcase. I don't know, pinking shears just bring back kind of nostalgic memories for me, so I love them, but I couldn't find them, and I'm sure my children use them on something inappropriate, like cardboard or something, so I'm going to show you how to do a zigzag stitch on the edge to prevent fraying. We're going to get to the edge. I'm going to do back stitch, and then I'm going to lift my needle up with the hand crank. I'm going to pull out my fabric, cut the thread, and there we have a seam, both sides. Now, the one thing you're going to need to do first is, see that corner? I want you to take your scissors, let me find the camera, take your scissors and trim the corner. This will make it so that when you turn your pillowcase right side out, it will not be all bunched up in the corner. So, and I'm probably, because I made quite large seam allowances, I'm going to trim the other edge around here a little bit more. Now, there are many options for finishing seam allowances. This is called a seam allowance. Now, this part here on this side of the seam is called a seam allowance. There are many ways to finish a seam. Today, the way we are going to do it is with a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to switch this machine to a zigzag stitch, which looks like it's number 4 here. So I just push the button, it goes up to number 4, and it automatically is going to be a zigzag stitch. And you want to do it on the edge. It doesn't have to be going over the edge. I think it's fine if it does, but I'm going to first cut off some of these extra threads. And trim my thread up here. All right. Put my needle down. I'm going to line the fabric up with the side of my foot just to make it easier. I'm going to go forward a couple stitches. I'm going to go back a stitch. Okay, now I'm going to go forward. And this will just keep your fabric from fraying a lot when you put it in the wash. It's easy to do. This is on the inside, so you don't have to worry about it looking pretty or being super straight. If your stitch starts going over the edge, that's totally cool. In fact, I do that a lot of times. I do it so close to the edge that the one needle kind of goes off almost. And you guys, it's been a while since I've used this machine, and I forget how much I really like it. And this is my daughter's machine, but it's really nice. And this is the one I recommend if you are a beginner and you're looking for a machine. There are lots of great beginner machines out there, though. This is the one I'm familiar with, and I recommend because I have experience with it. If you guys have a machine that you like and you recommend, go ahead and type it into the comments. This is just a zigzag stitch. You can see the needle going back and forth. My fabric's going nice and slow, so I just take my time making sure that I guide it with one hand and steady it with the other. And again, this just prevents fraying when it's washed. It's a pillowcase, so it'll get a lot of wash and wear. Some of the other ways that you could finish the edge, besides the pinking shears, which I talked about, are a French seam, which would have required us to construct this just a little differently. We would have first sewed our seam with the pillowcase wrong sides together, so basically inside out, and then we would flip it and then we would sew it again. You can do on this one, another thing you could do would just be a straight stitch along the edge, would also work. Some machines, especially older machines, don't have zigzag, so if you have a straight stitch, you could do that. If you had a serger, you could serge the edges. Do you guys have a favorite? You guys have a favorite way? I'm coming to the edge here, the end. Do you have a favorite way you like to finish a simple seam like this? And as soon as this is done, the pillowcase is complete, and we can flip it right side out. I like to press it again at the end, just to make sure the edges are crisp. And that's it. This, on your first try, will probably take you an hour to make. And if you decide that you had fun and you liked it and you wanted to make more, I'd say by like the third or fourth one, you'd be sewing these in like, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes. This is a pretty easy project. Once you get comfortable, and again, I'm just going nice and slow. Go slow so that you stay straight. Once you get more comfortable, go a little faster. Keep your fingers out of this. Keep your fingers out of this area. The needle will go through your finger, like all the way through your finger, and you don't want that. All right, lift your needle up. Lift up the foot, pull it out. You can use the thread cutter or scissors to cut off the thread. And there you have your zigzag stitch on the edge. Now, you can do it, and part of this I did it closer to show you. You can do it, well, I guess I didn't. You can do it right on the edge if you want, or you can have it a little bit further away from the edge. Either way. Now, let's pull you back here. And lift this up so you can see me. Let me slide over. Okay, so now it's inside out. I'm going to trim a few threads before I flip it. And now we're totally done. Nancy says her mom made all of her clothes when she was growing up. That is really nice. I made many clothes for my kids for a while, and then the last couple years they say, Mom, make me this, make me that, and I make it, and then it never gets worn. So, all right, here's my edge, the corners, and the pillowcase. You guys can do this. I'm gonna back you up a little bit. I can get a better view. All right. So let's talk about the seam ripper a little bit. I am going to grab this piece of fabric. I'm going to sew a little bit, and then I'm going to rip a seam for you guys. Okay, once you put the foot down first. This one even tells you don't have the foot down, which is really nice. And I don't want to do zigzag. Let me do a straight stitch. So the seam ripper looks like this. The sharp part is right in here. Some of the seam rippers, my other ones have a little red ball on this end. Some do not. Okay, the way most people say is the proper way, let me see if I can do this backwards, not very well, to rip a seam is on one side. You're going to slide the seam ripper under the, definitely can't do it backwards. So you slide it under, and you're gonna just push it up and see how busted that seam? You're gonna do that about every 1/4 inch. So you go along, bust the seam about every 1/4 inch, every 2 or 3 seams. And then once you do that, this edge, then you'll be able to go over to the other side and just pull out the thread. So now on the back side, because we've, see, it just pulls out, and then you can pull away these little threads or use a lint roller. The way that, let me sew another seam, the way that some people do it and since this one doesn't have the little red ball, it's harder to, so the way some people do it is they, this requires more practice, but they put the seam ripper right in the seam with the ball side down. This one doesn't have a ball, so let's see. This is a little more dangerous because you can rip a hole right in your fabric. So what they do is, let me see if I can do it on this one. You just slide the seam ripper along, and I'm having a hard time because I'm holding it, but you just slide it along and it rips each seam. This is dangerous. I don't recommend you do that, especially if it doesn't have the little red ball on it, but unless you practice first on something that is not something you need. And then another way that some people do it, which I think is not the best way either, but every now and then you'll have a fabric and it's really hard to find, like, say your thread is exactly the same color and it's a type of fabric where you feel like you're catching the fabric instead of the thread. What you can do, which is also not like the best way, would be to open up the seam and just one at a time pick your seam. So through the inside like that. And then I've seen some people also go every single stitch and pull out every single stitch. I don't recommend that so much either. But how do you guys use your seam ripper? Does anyone have a special trick or a technique that you learned was like the proper way? So if you're just joining us, we made this pillowcase, start to finish, very easy, beginner friendly. We finished this inside seam, but this was very easy to do, to make this cuff all turned under. Looks very nice. This is very easy to do, beginner friendly. Anyone can make this, I think, you guys. So definitely don't be scared of it. So now you guys know, you put thread in the machine, bobbin in, you test your fabric, you make sure it's working, change your needle occasionally. Your needles should be changed. Some people say like every 2 to 3 projects. It really depends on what you're sewing and how much you're sewing, but change your needles occasionally. These don't cost that much, and you spend a lot of money on fabric. Use good needles. They aren't going to make your project even harder. Dull needles will make holes in the fabric. It'll just cause problems with your stitches too. So do that. Nelly, pre-washing. I recommend pre-washing for everything unless you're like a serious quilter. A lot of quilters don't like to pre-wash because they like everything to shrink after they've quilted it, and it gives it like a different kind of a texture, I guess. But I definitely recommend pre-washing. This is a pillowcase. If you don't pre-wash it, and if you are starting with good quilting fabric, and it's not going to shrink that much, and you'll be fine, and I don't think it's going to pucker weird and do weird things. But in general, you should pre-wash your fabric. So when you order your fabric and it comes in the mail, just go ahead and pop it all in the washing machine right away, and then fold it and put it away. Because when you want to sew, you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to go grab some fabric. And then you're like, oh, no, it's not washed yet. So if it's all washed before you even like put it on your shelf or whatever, then you're not going to have that problem. So I'm going to scroll back here just a second to see if there's questions I missed. Joe says, my mom could sew without a pattern, so it inspired her to start sewing as well. I'm seeing some familiar people. Hi, Dawn. Okay, questions. Any questions at all? Anyone? Bueller? We've got lots of fun projects in the works. So next week I will be, if you haven't joined my Facebook group, go ahead and join that. There's a link in the description of this video. Go ahead and join the group. I will be posting information about next week's project, so you can get supplies if you want. And it's also just a fun group. It's not very big. There's like 7,000 people. This sewing machine, Jackie, is a Brother sewing machine, and we've had this for about 4 years. My daughter got that as a gift. I'm going to put I'm going to put the link to a blog post I wrote about that sewing machine, so you can go and see what that is. Let's see, we've got questions. Does the pillow inside won't get up? It has an opening at the end. So in the US, we put bed pillows in this. So, and then it has an opening at the end. So this is what we would call like a bed pillowcase. And so the pillow can come out easily, but it's for standard size bed pillows. Now, we will later in the series make a pillowcase with a zipper. Yes, you can sew a zipper for like a decorative pillow. We will do that. And so in just a few lessons, trust me, you guys will be able to actually do that. Thank you, Karen. Sue, you would love to know how to thread your Brother's sewing machine. The great thing about this one, I'm going to turn off that light. this brother has a diagram on top that actually like tells you what to do for when you're winding the bobbin, and then if you're threading it, it has like actual instructions, and then it continues here. So this is like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, which I think is pretty handy. Almost all sewing machines, I can't speak for all of them, especially some of the older ones, will go around this. We'll have a device on the top that looks like this. When you're winding your bobbin, your thread will go around this little round part and then back here. And when you're threading your machine to go through the needle, it goes under this little loop and around here, and it goes down the front and back up, and then it catches. There's, which is my other machine wasn't catching, which is why I switched. There's a little mechanism in here that comes up and down and moves the thread with the needle, and you'll go up and around and back down. And then there's usually a little, let me move you closer. So then you'll come back down here. Then there's this little part right here, which you put the thread behind it. It holds the thread against the needle shaft, and then it goes through the needle. So just about every sewing machine does that. So once you figure it out, you can do that. Joe says YouTube has lots of step-by-step videos, but definitely this is easy. If it's a brother, yeah, it just goes through here, down, up, it caught on this, and then goes behind the little hook, and then you thread it through the needle. Just about every machine will do that. You can probably find instructions on YouTube or online for any model. That's the nice thing. There's so many people out in the world making videos that you can probably find something specifically for your model. Especially if you have an older machine, Google your manual. You can probably find the manual online, and you can probably find someone who has it and has made a YouTube video about how to thread it or how to wind a bobbin. So it's pretty standard with most newer machines. Older machines might have a little bit of a different way of threading. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I'm gonna refresh to see. Oh, good. We've had a few people online watching. So did you guys get the link to my group? If you joined that, then you will get more information. You won't miss the next video. There's a link. You can request to join in. I will approve you, and then each week I'll give a little more information, and I'll link to the video in that group so you don't miss that as well. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Next week we're going to continue on lesson 2, and I haven't decided exactly what project we're going to do, but it'll be something where we learn how to sew a curve. So Barbara says she used to sew her own clothes. That was 45 years ago, and she nearly fainted when she saw the price of patterns. Fabric and patterns, everything, the price has gone up, but really it's, I don't know. I think you have to sew because you love it, not because you want to save money necessarily. You can. There are people that do it, and they, thrift all their fabric, and they don't use patterns, or they use free patterns, but I just put if you're watching the video in the original video, I just put a link in the comments. If you are not watching the video in the original one, click on the video, or click on the little, it'll say, the Train to Crazy, their live video now, or whatever. You click on the live part, and you'll go to the original video, and that's where you can see the comments. And I just put a comment for the group. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to write join that group. And that's for my Facebook group. Oh, Phyllis in Maine. How's the weather there? Do you guys have nice weather or is it cold? It's I'm in Ohio and right now it's raining and it's been really up and down. It was like 75 degrees Friday and then it snowed on Saturday. So it can't decide if it wants to be winter or spring yet. We're kind of in that in between. It'll do that for a while, I think. Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone, for joining me, and I will see you again next week. And thank you to Fabric.com for sponsoring this. You guys, I have links to all my supplies in the description of the video, and all links to Fabric.com. Please, if you don't have access to Fabric, go check out all the fabrics. I get a lot of fabrics from them. I don't know if they still carry it, but at one point, which I think it's out of stock now, they carried my fabric line, but they have all sorts of great fabrics. This is, the ones I use today are cotton and steel. It's Quilting Cottons. They are not cheap, but these are so nice. These are great, 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 great fabrics, and they have great vibrant colors and everything. So you guys, the biggest things you need to take away are, if you have a problem, stop, turn it off, rethread it, put the bobbin back in, press everything nicely, which I didn't do the final step yet. I'm going to press this once. Top stitching makes everything look more professional, and test your fabric before you sew it. So if you cut off a little bit of it, test it, sew on the tested part so that you know that your stitches are working great. And if you have a problem, you don't have a problem in the middle of your project on your good fabric. You only have a problem on the scrap that you were going to throw away anyway. So go ahead and save this or share it to your wall if you want to watch it again. And you'll be able to, once I am no longer live, you'll be able to rewind it or fast forward to whatever you want to watch. Karen says, if you have a problem, go get another machine. Exactly. If you are live, go get another machine. As soon as I'm off here, I'm going to fix that machine though, because that machine never has problems. I think it has stage fright, which is probably what happened. So, okay. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a great night and enjoy your family or your pets or whatever you are at home with. See you next week.